Hello. Hi, everybody. I am so happy to be here. I know nobody expected to see me actually on live. I brought my power center here, my husband, my king, because he was a really dear friend of Randy Weston's as well. So I have a really special show for you today. This is the inauguration of the new show called um, Eavesdropping. And the reason behind that is that we're going to bring people together who all knew a certain person, have them talk about that person, and then we're just going to eavesdrop. We're going to listen to their conversation. So before we get started, I have a very special guest that I'd like to bring on, and that is the widow of Randy Weston, Fatoumata. Hello, Fatou.
Thank you so much for doing this today. For my king, the only one, Randy Weston.
You know how much we love him.
Yeah, I know that. Sure. Hey, Kepko.
Hey, baby, how you doing?
Fine, thank you.
That's good.
Okay, so Fatou, we've been down this road together for many years, and I know what Randy meant to you, and I know what the continent meant to Randy, and so this is very special for us to have an opportunity to honor him in this way. You know, it means an awful lot to me. So we are now going to go off, and I have a short video that I want to show to everyone.
Can I say something before?
Please do.
Sure.
Okay. Missing you, my dearest husband. Today is your truly filled with memories of happiness and tears, and of your birthday celebration that we shared together all these beautiful years. Happy birthday in heaven, my love.
Oh, thank you, Fatou.
Thank you.
I want to show a little video first, and then I'm going to introduce our guest today. It's about a 7-minute video, and then after which we will bring on our guests.
Wherever I go, I tell people, students, grandmas, and I'm so happy now because when I play, all the races come to me holding their hearts. They said, "You're taking us back home." I said, "We all are from there, you see." And we have to stop to realize no Africa, no jazz, no blues, no bossa nova, no calypso, no reggae. It's the creation of African people. How they did it, up till now, I don't know. Where did Art Tatum come from? I don't know where these people come from. I just don't know. I'm amazed more now. I'm more amazed with Monk and Coleman Hawkins today than I was yesterday. How could they take these European instruments and do what they did and get their own sound?
As Volney described, all the inhabitants have a bloated face, puffed up eyes, wide nose, and thick lips. I was tempted to attribute it to the climate, but when I visited the Sphinx, its appearance gave me the key to this riddle. On seeing that head, typically Negro in all its features, I remembered the remarkable passage where Herodotus, the 5th century historian, says, "As for me, I judge the Colchians to be a colony of the Egyptians, because, like them, they are black with woolly hair." Volney continues, in other words, the The ancient Egyptians were true Negroes of the same type as all native-born Africans. Just think that this race of black men today are slaves, and the object of our scorn is the very race to which we owe our arts, sciences, and even the use of speech. But as profound and culturally fruitful as the great empire of Egypt, or Kemet, was, there was one greater and even mightier which stretched into the dawn of time, where myth, legend, and history merge as one.
Growing up as a boy, I mean, we loved music before I ever even touched the piano. Music was our way of life, and I grew up in the community of all the nationalities. People from the Caribbean, people from Africa, people from the South, people from Europe, all bringing their cultures, So it was so rich and so wonderful. But music, that was the key. And I can't emphasize too much. It was my mother and father. It was that generation that took us to here, to Ellington, who would bring the best music in the house. They would bring us spiritual or gospel or blues. And they weren't musicians, you see. So I wanted to find out, how could they know so much about music, never studying music and whatnot. But when you go to the motherland, the people of Africa are music. Music is the first language. It's how we survived slavery. It's how we survived many hardships. During the early 20s and 30s, when they were lynching black people in this country, your skin was no good, your hair, all the stereotype. But it was that music. Whether it was the black church on Sunday, where I had to be there every Sunday with my Virginia mama and that collection. Then during the week, I was with my Caribbean father. Panama, Jamaica, Proud, Marcus Garvey, Africa, all the time, you see. Plus, we would go to calypso dances, we go to Palladium. So, because everybody comes to New York, So it was wonderful because we were just surrounded with music, and there was no separation between the ages. There was no such thing as music for the young, no. In our way of growing up, music was for everybody. When Randy Weston plays the piano, I gotta move a 3-year-old or a 100-year-old. Music is life itself, music. And in ancient tradition, music was just as important, ancient civilization. Music was just as important as science, astronomy, any kind of education. Music was required because music was our first language, our spiritual language. Even up till now, even up till last week, when I go to the piano and I look at that audience, I've been doing that for a while. All the religions are there. All the colors are there. All the ages are there. But we become one people when the music is right.
So, in the African tradition, we often ask for permission to speak from our elders. That's why I wanted to start out with Randy telling you who he is and what he's about. I'd like now to introduce you to four kings of the piano, and I want them to have a conversation among each other. We're just going to eavesdrop, we're going to listen in. It just so happens that I have worked professionally with three of the four people who are about to speak, and I'm so proud of that because they're just really kings on their instrument. So first I'd like to introduce you, and I'll bring them on one at a time, Montgomery Alexander, and then Rodney Kendricks, and then Elio Villafranca, and then Nduduzo Makhathini. And I'm going to listen in and please enjoy. How about Monty? How about you start us off? I think that you've got so many stories. I'd love for you to start us off, and then you guys just, go after it. Monty, you're on mute.
I'm on forgetful. Okay, so let me start again. Good afternoon to you all. I'm wishing you beautiful things in life, and I'm pleased to meet you all today. Rodney, who I've known for many years, and thank you, Gail, for this incentive to celebrate our beloved Randy Weston, Baba Randy, at what would have been his 95th birthday. So, talking about this great man, I was just looking at something I wrote when he actually passed on and transitioned to the homeland, let's call it. And I made this impression of Randy with his piano. He was like a giant eagle. The eagle, when it spreads his wings, and he presided over those keys and started to take you on a journey. He didn't just play music, he went on a journey, an adventure. And the cornerstone of that whole experience was his deep love for Africa. He was always this great musician, playing piano, writing songs. But when he went to Morocco, he's like he entered a fulfillment of who he was, how he was. And then he got connected with Senegal and other great countries in Europe and in Africa. And you could hear it with every note he played. So when I saw him playing the piano, it was such an experience. Well, the other part of it is that I am privileged to say I enjoyed a fine friendship with Randy. And he accepted me, I guess, like little brother kind of guy. And yes, indeed, I even had the honor of touring with him in Europe back in the 1980s. We played in various concerts in Montreux, Switzerland, and he had a wonderful hand drummer with him from Ghana, Eric Asante. And I had a colleague of mine who's from Miami, Florida, with Bahamian heritage, Robert Thomas Jr. And they were the two grand pianos and the two African drummers. And we went at it and just had a wonderful experience. And that cemented our friendship. And I would see him through the years. And it was like a love session, because when he spoke with that passion for the music, for the legacy, and I realized he was indeed a forebearer of what Duke Ellington was bringing us. And then it went further down into Thelonious Monk. So he was not only keeping that legacy alive, but his feeling about the power of Africa, which, as he said in that video, and I felt this all my life, that's where the greatest of American music was born, from the African spirit and the rhythm. I come from Jamaica, and I knew about Marcus Garvey and what he gave to the heritage. And I found out from Randy that he and his parents, they were followers of Marcus Garvey. So he had a passion for Jamaica. So I also connected with him with this mutual appreciation for that heritage. So he's a man of some of his family were Panamanian and others were Jamaican. And he brought such a level of excellence to the Jamaican experience. He introduced Melba Liston, great musician, and maybe it was the other way around. Maybe Melba had been there and introduced Randy. It was one or the other. And Randy meant so much to the Jamaican experience. You know, you hear all the popular rhythms coming out of Jamaica. He had already connected with Count Ozzy, the Rastafarian musician. So his love of rhythm and the drums, it all came together. So as far as the human being that Randy, and I don't like to say was, Randy is, it was about love. There was this deep love for humanity, for all people, all groups, ethnic groups, everybody. He showed that in everything he said and did. And I just love this guy. He just was a super duper kind of person. And, you know, here I'm the short guy, Monty Alexander. And there's this, I even had a picture here. This is us playing in Montreux. I hold it up. There's a little guy and the giant eagle. There he is. And it's a proud memory. And our friendship was a beautiful one. And I met his dear wife, Fatou, who was from Senegal. And we just I don't know. All I can say is there's not enough words to talk about the magnificence of Randolph Weston, a Brooklyn brother. Yeah.
Wow. That was beautiful.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was beautiful.
I want to first of all say that it is an honor to be talking about Randy Weston with a master like Mr. Monty Alexander. You know, I had the pleasure of witnessing Randy's love for Monty and Monty's love for Randy. And I was really a child in the midst of giants, you know. It's real, you know, I'm just being real. And they were gracious enough and beautiful enough to invite me into that, you know. And Randy changed my life. You know, I started studying with him, and I have a great story. I don't know if it's going to be understood, but I'm going to say it. You know, I had a lesson with him. He had this big studio that he was renting out, and I walked in the studio, and I don't even know if he knew I was there. And he was playing when I walked in. And my previous teacher, or my teacher at that time, had told me how he experienced Monk and Duke and Bud Powell practicing in time. But he told me I had to see it. And he had been telling me this for years, that I had to see it, because he couldn't really explain the effect of it. And so I walked in the studio and I sat down and I watched Randy practice in time, and I understood what it was immediately. And so this African practice of taking something from nothing and blooming it into this beautiful, beautiful thing, and then throwing it away and starting the process over and over again. I had I got a chance to see it with my own eyes, and he literally changed. I didn't know how to sit at the piano after that. It was incredible. And the funny part about that story is, as soon as he finished, I walked up to him and I said, I was getting ready to ask him about something that he was doing, you know, and he said, "Don't you hate it when people ask you what's that?" Yeah, he was a giant of a man, you know. He loved his community. He loved his people. He taught me about Africa and the contribution of Africa all over the globe. And he taught me that if you extract that contribution from anywhere, you will have absolutely nothing. And it was done with love.
Yep.
You understand me? It wasn't done with no malice. It was done with care. And it was just a fact. And for that reason, I love him.
Beautiful.
Oh man.
Thank you.
Yeah, so So I was born in Cuba, so I wasn't born in America. So I didn't really get to Randy's music until much later in my life. I was introduced to Randy's music by my one of my friends, Scott Thompson, who was my promoter at some point, publicist at some point. And then he introduced me to Randy because at the time that I was working with Jazz and Lincoln Center, I was doing this project that I called Letters to Mother Africa. Because it was a project that I coming from Cuba and being so in touch with the root of Afro-Cuban music, African music, all across the globe, I felt that I wanted to do something to reflect on American composers or performers who are actually in secret being writing to Africa. What I mean by in secret is not calling it "I'm writing to Africa," but the titles of the songs and their commitment to the music and to the roots would suggest to me that they were writing letters to Africa, right, to their mother. Yeah. So then I was working in that project, and then I wanted to talk to Randy because I wanted in my vision, so like Randy would be the perfect person or musician to kind of like to have two pianos. I have the vision of having two pianos at Jazz and Lincoln Center surrounded by this sonic environment of percussion and all kinds of African instruments and things like that. Unfortunately, that show didn't come to fruition because Randy, the time where the show was, he was doing something else somewhere else. But that started our beautiful relationship, and then I started visiting Randy to his house. That's when I met Fatuma, and then and Randy was like one of the things I was impressed. Like I was really impressed. He was such a giant person, but he was so gentle. Yep. Like even in the way he spoke, in the way he plays at the piano, in the way he tells you things, the way he shares the story. You always had to lean forward a little bit to kind of hear him, what he's saying, because and always loved his punctuation, his ending punctuation. You see, like I always waiting for that, right?
Right.
That, and then I always lean on, and then then I would go to his house, and then they, Fatman himself, like they invited me to this beautiful party where I was introduced to the music from Morocco, and then play with the musicians and eat food and talk about music. It was just like a beautiful environment of things. And then through him, I met. He introduced me to the music of Melba Lifton. Especially when he gave me this album, the Uhuru Africa, which is like one of the albums that I hold dear. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he even signed it for me. That I hold dear. It's just like a master. Work. And then she always talk to my students about this music and how he brought so many different musicians, Clark Terry, and like it's just everybody's in there. Even he has. I didn't really discover until later that actually there's two bass players playing simultaneously all the time. It was like wow, and they did it in such a harmonious way, such a perfect way that it seems like just one instrument. And then he also gave me books to read about it. Every time every minute I spent with Randy was kind of like a workshop. Yes. It's like just learning so much, and he was so given, like really, really given person. Like he never hold back. He always give you and give you and give you, and and it's just like it's one of those person who became like my mentor without even calling him a mentor. Because every time I was to his house, it was just like, okay, and it was like, okay, what I'm going to, like it just was like going to school basically. And I totally agree with what Ronnie say about experiencing the life of the musician, but in real time, real life, not seeing them from a distance on a music hall or a club. But just talking to them and see them play and just getting inside their artistic vision and their what their passion about music is. And Randy was so passionate about music. That's the one thing. And he was just like 100% passion from top to bottom. Yep. So I'm gonna miss him a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Oh man. Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be in the presence of such great masters, I am a very committed disciple to the sounds that all of you make, and of course, part of the link to especially Brother Kendrick was I had been listening to Randy Weston for many years, and then through a friend of Brother Kendrick, Begum Selegwe, South African pianist, then I got to know about Mr. Randy Weston. And so there are those links, and not only, through the friendship, but through the sound as well. You can tell how these relationships are harnessed in the sound. I got to see Randy Weston once. It was in Dakar. I had gone to this festival where for the first time I met also a brother, Mark Carey, and we were hanging out and we were talking backstage. And I remember when Bob Weston walked into this venue, everyone stood up. I had never seen that happen in Africa at least for a jazz musician and the so-called, kind of like American musician. And then it triggered my interest in a deep way. Why would, people so deep in this cultural kind of like space, pay attention and have such a gesture? And I would learn later when I was reading books about Randy Weston and listening to a lot of his interviews, and he speaks about this, the piano as an African instrument. And for a lot of us here in South Africa, most of us didn't have the classical background, and we had always wanted to find ways of connecting with this instrument that would somewhat be closer to us.
Yep.
And so Randy Weston for me became that bridge. And it is later on I got to learn about a story of the Mbira in Zimbabwe. And so the story goes that like the Mbiras were not really built by any human beings, but they were brought by the mermaids onto the river banks of Zimbabwe. And so people found these instruments, at least the first generation of these instruments. And when they were teaching these instruments, they used this method of like an elderly man, a mother, and the children in terms of describing the various registers of the pitch and how people were approaching. So they say if you hit the lowest note, it's the elderly man, and it's all the wisdom, and they don't really say much. And in the mid register is the mother that takes care of the entire village. And the high notes were really the children, the excitement and all the joy that comes with being young and making all these mistakes. And, so later on I was listening to Randy Weston, and for the first time I actually had that in the sound, where there's a kind of deliberateness with using the low notes as like the anchor of all this wisdom, and the voicing in a register where you feel the warmth of a mother.
Okay.
And he had a way of playing the higher register that has all this excitement and sometimes the humor, So somehow for many of us, he really made the piano to tell an African story, and we are forever thankful for that.
I want to say, man, you just said a beautiful speech. You are the gentleman. And what I see here, and I feel so grateful for, is that for people who are hunger for wisdom, and especially the wisdom of our elders. I was given that gift to want to be hungry, to be around my elders and hear the stories they would tell. I'm talking about Randy. He's in my life one of the great elders, the great teachers, the great storytellers, because when he played, he evoked life, literally. I mean, it had little to do with like somebody saying, "How'd you do that? What was that?" Like he don't go there. He just painting a picture, recreating an experience that was down in his bones, in his heart. And he literally was one of the masters of the storytelling experience from the African perspective. And what you were just saying about the family, the father, the mother, the children, that somehow I can relate to that in my own experience, because when I would go to the piano, it was my first toy. I hope that doesn't sound disrespectful, but I was a 4-year-old child going on the piano, playing the low note, the high note, just having fun. I didn't have a toy train or other toys. The piano became this place to express feelings, and okay, you play some rhythm and you play some melody, but all of it went into this idea of recreating an experience. And the thing that, and I never heard you use that word, but every time I heard them talking about and just sing about the piano being an African instrument, I start thinking about kalimba, the kalimba instrument. And in Jamaica, we have the musicians, when they play the calypso music, they're sitting on a box with 5 prongs, boom, 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 creating the bass pitch. It's not a true note necessarily. It's just a sense, it's a feeling. And when I hear Randy hit those low notes, it's like the earth is shaking, thunderous.
Thunder, baby, thunder.
Thunder, man. Lightning and thunder. Then he go up there and he play the bird in the tree. And then he go there to play a river. There's a river going through the creek. And then he come over here. And then when you get to the middle, and then you hear the sweet harmonies that come from our so-called jazz experience. So, but the thing about, I think, you all, is the joy of being in the presence of our elders, Randy being who we're speaking of, because there were others, but Randy was a down-home cat as well, he's not no professor somebody, he's just a regular cat. And he's talking to us about life, and you sense the passion, as you say, Elio, absolutely appropriate. So I just had to express that to you. It's great to be with you 3 guys who relate to something I feel very strong about. And Randy was not a musician, he was a magician.
True. I remember Monty. I did a duet with Randy. I had practiced so hard to do this duet with him. And after the concert, you came up to me and you said, "Baby, that was life. He was playing life."
I said that. Okay. One of my better days.
The best thing that could have happened to me, because I was technically ready, but technique wasn't involved. It was about life, baby. It was about the life of the people on the planet Earth.
Wow.
And you came up to me. We were walking to the dressing room, and you put your hands on me. He said, "Baby, that was about life." Randy was playing life.
You both were,
You were right, my friend.
Thank you all very much. So everybody, I really appreciate what you all just said. So great.
And Brother Rodney, I remember the first time I heard you play when you were here in South Africa, and I came up to you and said, "How do you get such a big sound out of the piano?" And you said, "I asked Randy the same question."
Well, I've had Auntie and Gilly Coggins and all of these people, Chris Anderson and Barry Harris.
Anderson.
I think hearing all of these stories is actually makes sense to me, like why Randy was such an admirer of Duke Ellington, because Duke Ellington has the same approach in the piano that Randy did. Like he used the lowest, and the way I love the way Nduduzo just playing it to be putting it in a family context. That's really beautiful way to put it. Since I'm coming from Cuba, I normally put it in terms of seniority, right?
Yep.
For us in Afro-Cuban music, the very traditional of Afro-Cuban music, the lowest drum is always the oldest drum, and it's always the drum who speaks. Mm-hmm. It's just a function of each instrument, thinking about 3-part, talking about, the low, the mid, and the high. The lows is the one who always speaks, communicates with the gods and communicates. It's the one that is the bridge between the gods and us in earth.
Yep.
The middle one is the one that's always creating this conversation between those two. It's always answering. The middle one is always answering to what the lower is. The lower drum is commanding the commanding, right? It's commanding. The middle one is the one interacting and kind of answering what called the call and response. And the highest one is the one who keeps everything balanced and together. Just in a way, it's kind of like the same concept of family, how the role that everybody plays in the family, right? The kids are the one that keeps all the parents kind of like together, like balanced, kind of like put like in, you know, and then the mother being the one who's taking care of everything, the communicating between those two. And then the lowest one is like the one who's just like, okay, this, you know, like that kind of conceptual thing. And whenever I hear a pianist that uses that kind of, because I'm Monty, I heard you two doing that many times, and I follow your music, and I hear you doing that. How when you treat the instrument with that kind of concept of that kind of understanding on the role of registers, and what each register would communicate in the music, and what effect it's going to create in the music, I think is always found like, okay, this is about the root of the music. This is about Africa. This is about the meaning of everything, right? Like and Randy was, like as you said, Randy was such a master of that. And then when you hear Duke Ellington, I still hear the same thing. Mm-hmm. And like even Monk, I mean, all the masters of piano, they have this clear understanding, like, okay, this instrument has a life that is beyond the keys. It's a life that is about the spirituality of the whole thing, and also it has a purpose in the organization of it has a purpose. It's not just like just a mathematical organization of it where you can pick and choose. It has something else, you know, rather than that.
I think I wanna link to that idea that came up that Weston was playing live, and I think I've kind of felt that a lot. And I've always been particularly interested in his inclusion of percussion in an ensemble or just the African jam. You know, it's something that you don't find in a standard kind of like jazz trio, you know, but that inclusion for me says something about where he leans. And, you know, I have always thought of like jazz music as an African music art form. And of course, I also think a lot about displacement and what it means to remember something from the slightest echo and expound sounds from that kind of echo from elsewhere. So in listening to how he presents his music, there's always that echo for me that informs the bigger sounds. Mm-hmm. So also there's a way of thinking about nothingness towards like developing sounds all the way down to a note, you know? But that process, in many ways, I kind of feel like in the context of home here, would think of him as a diviner, as someone that speaks the language of the gods in a certain way. Amen. And that in a way, when I listen to him and actually watch these videos and stuff, it almost like I see a village again, you know, and like just because of the amount of kindness as well that he has towards everyone, and the warmth that you feel when you're listening to his groups, and so many of the things that I've been seeing are the principles that are very important in my upbringing. So I listen to him as a teacher, not of music, but of someone that teaches us how to find our roles in community and our functions within. So playing the piano as a role in a village, mm-hmm. as opposed to a performance. So somehow I feel that there's a strong kind of leaning to African cultural concepts that inform the functions of each band member. I hear that a lot as well with Harper, you know, who I was fortunate to get to play with. And he told beautiful stories about his friend Weston.
Billy Harper.
Yes, Billy Harper. And that's the same kind of thing where he uses the register in a way that almost speaks to two dimensions. even within the horn. I mean, Chain was exploring the same thing. But I think there's something deeper that we can take from Weston that is not about the music, that is about life.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's just the mind starts wandering into all these spiritual places because we're all saying that Randy is an extraordinary presence in our whole world, music, yes, but all these other aspects. So as I celebrate him today, first of all, the great love he had for everybody around him, the way I saw him interacting with everybody, with musicians, and you use the word kindness. Kindness was all the time thing. I can't imagine Randy getting mad, but I guess he got mad. We're all human beings, right? And I just saw him, just like I said, the giant eagle, just spreading joy and love, and just and it's not intellectual. That's not the right word for it. It's just that old wisdom that comes from the earth and the trees. That and the piano was his voice, and he had that, and there aren't very, very many musicians that I've come across that did music and Duke, without question, was one of the great guys, and I have a few other in my mind when I talk about, but Randy was right in there, and his great respect for the lineage, where the music started, I mean, we talk about Nat Cole on the piano. We talk about all the different ways about the piano because, there's not this thing about only one way. There's a whole bunch of ways, But the way that always connected me was, the African spirit coming in the music. And as a kid growing up, I was exposed to all the rhythms, and even as close as we are to Cuba is a kind of different series of the way the Jamaican people want to dance as opposed to the people because about dancing. The dance, if you can't dance to this music, something wrong, That's been when I get what you call critical, which is I don't like when I see myself doing that. I notice that people got so intellectual with how you analyze this and that, this and that, and this and that they didn't love it in the beginning, but they seem to make people move. The spirit to move, and you just like Randy said, the 3-year-old kid or grandma in the audience. We're here to reach everybody, this music, and to uplift humanity. And he didn't talk religion; he talked life, spiritual. Yeah. So he was a mover, And on my better days, let's put it that way, I seek that approach to the music is just a gift to be able to move people to a better place. When you walk out of the club or whatever it was, the people are glad they came and paid $5 or whatever.
You went back a minute. You went back a ways.
Yeah, that's the first
I would love to say that, Nduduzo talked about he was one of the gods. He was definitely communicating the divine intelligence of the universe. But Monty said that I'm gonna paraphrase you. Almost Randy as a pianist, almost, because he was a great pianist, but it was almost as if the piano was incidental. It was just this message that he brought us was so much larger than piano.
Randy,
I think
I would, time and time again be with Randy and Monty, and I would hear those cats talk. And man, they would be talking about what happened back home. You dig? You know, with the regular folk. And that was bigger to them, and it should be bigger to us than running up and down the piano. And that's the story he told. He told a story about the people.
Yeah, he saw music actually. I think probably it's been said in different ways, but I think he saw music as a healing thing. Like he totally whenever he got into the stage was like, I'm gonna heal these people. Like he saw music as the best healing. And he actually said it on the interview, like how music could bring people from so many different walk of life, and yet it was a unifier, right? Like it just unified people and heal people in a way that there's no any other form that can do that other than music. Because maybe it's because it's the oldest form that existed on Earth. I mean, since even before human being, there was still sound. And then there are birds, and there's like music has always been in the air. And music has always been the one thing that all humankind has in common, and it's the one thing that can heal everybody from anything, basically.
The struggle of life, baby.
Struggle of life. Well, I guess we're all done.
My name is Randy Weston. My music is called African Rhythms. I have some excellent musicians. I have Louis Nash on drums, Neil Clark on African percussion, Robert Trower on trombone, T.K. Blue on saxophones, and Alex Blake on bass. We're really a family. And we have a great love and great respect for our ancestors, and we constantly exchange information about what happened before us, going all the way back to the very beginning in Africa itself, you see. So we're really a family. We're not a band. Alex Blake, we've been together off and on since the 70s, you see. So we've been together a while. For me, Africa is like the common denominator. You know, it's obvious to me that my ancestors who were taken from Africa born here, you know, and they set the foundation for our existence in America. So if my great-great-great was an African, I have to be an African to respect them. At the same time, I have to honor them, all the sacrifices that they had to go through. People like Louis Armstrong and Duke and Basie, all those early people who created this music, that's our royalty, you see. So our music is to keep people in tune that this music is not old music. It's music of the 20th century, which was Africa's contribution to the Americas, you see. So that's what our music is all about. So I have music from Morocco, from South Africa, Nigeria, whatever. But it's to show that we have a foundation, and that's Mother Africa. It was powerful. See, I went to Nigeria in '61 before the State Department tour, my first trip to Africa. And so when I went to Nigeria, I was perfectly at home. You know, I said, hey, I never left, you know. Not that I knew the languages, but I felt the spirit of Africa. It never left me because of my father. He let me know, you know, I had to study African history before colonialism, before slavery. So as a boy growing up, I studied about the great African empires. So I had a foundation. So when I went to Nigeria, I spent 2 trips. I played with Fela when he played trumpet in 1963. I went with Nigeria '61 with Nina Simone, Lionel Hampton, Langston Hughes, 29 of us. Spent 10 days in Lagos. Then the State Department happened after. But the State Department was very important because I had my own sextet, Clifford Jordan, Ray Copeland, Bill Wood, Ed Blackwell, and Chief Bay. I had my son with me, and I played the composition I wrote about Africa. But you have to go to the continent to see whether it's real or not. But we had a tremendous experience. James Reese Europe, the first ones to bring jazz to France during the First World War. They fought during the war as soldiers. Carnegie Hall, 1912, and 150 musicians, 10 pianos. He was the creator with Irene and Vernon Castle of the Foxtrot. So he was an amazing figure. And he got musicians to join the U.S. Army during the First World War. And they fought the Germans during the day. They were decorated by the French army. And they brought this music the French had never heard before that we call jazz. So a very important figure. So what we do with our music is to let the people know that this music is our culture. It's not just music, it's our culture. It's our way of life. And to understand it better, we have to go back as far as we can to understand what we have, where it comes from. In other words, we're standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. I mean, they were very close. Noble was a great singer. Noble was a sergeant in the Army with James Reese Europe, you see. U.B. Blake was also, that generation was very powerful people because they created something that never happened before, you see. So for me, that's our royalty, yeah. We're very lucky because, you see, going back to our parents again, our mother and fathers, they're the ones who took us to hear Duke Ellington and Count Basie and Billie Holiday. They would bring spirituals in the house. We studied European classical music on the piano. They would bring calypso. So our parents, growing up in Bed-Stuy and Brooklyn, not just only my people, but they would bring all kinds of music. So they weren't in categories like today. He said, all the music is ours. So we go to Palladium and hang out, had to be in a black church every Sunday, had blues bands on the corner, but that was all us. You see, because they knew it was all our music, you see. And they were wonderful, and that's our foundation. Plus, they made me take music lessons, my dad. You see, so they gave us a beautiful foundation. And in addition, despite all the racism against our people, they kept us very spiritual. Well, Duke Ellington, he had an orchestral concept on the piano. The piano was an orchestra for him, you know. And so everything came out of that piano. So he was a great pianist. I have some 1928 Duke when he's playing stride piano, but he changed his way of playing to accompany the orchestra. He was the most amazing human being I've ever encountered. And not only his music, but everything he did, everything he wrote, you heard the blues underneath. And the blues is the language of African people, you see? And plus, Duke, like Basie, that generation, the music they wrote were telling stories of how our ancestors lived. Our joys, our sorrows, our funerals, our dance. They were wonderful because they were truly storytellers. And Ellington was a master. And the musicians in his orchestra, everybody, the best. I heard her first with Dizzy Gillespie. I heard her with Dizzy's band in the early 50s. And she wrote an arrangement on My Reverie. And she was featured on trombone. And I heard her, looked at her, instant magic. And we worked together until she died. She was an amazing arranger. And she wrote music for everybody. But she took my music and expanded it, you know, and created a lot of colors. Great, great master arranger.
Wow.
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 I love when Randy says something profound and then at the end of it you say, you see.
You see.
And when you hear you see said like that, it ain't about maybe or possibly. You say, this is it. You see,
You know,
there's something you need to know, and if you didn't know it before, you see.
I want to tell you, brothers, that you have really blessed the inauguration of this show. It's eavesdropping has just been wonderful because you've been just talking so wonderfully and lovingly about Randy. And I really would like for each one of you to just spend a minute to just close out, say what you feel about Randy, and send us on our way. I'm going to ask my husband, who was also, okay, you can say something now before they do.
I just wanted to say one thing. My father and his uncle, James, every time I saw my father, he would light up. I mean, he would look at me with such love. And every time I saw my Uncle James, he would look at me with such love. And the next time that happened in my life, it was Randy Weston. I mean, I would just, when I see him, he look at me and look like, he just said, man, I love you so much.
Yeah.
Because that's what my dad and my father, and that's what I always remembered about Randy. When he looked at me, I said, man, somebody loved me.
Yeah, man. That's
all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with Monty. Just some parting words, and then we will end. You all have really blessed this eavesdropping. I thank you so much.
Well, from the standpoint of blessing, my life was blessed to come across this giant of a human being. And I think of Randy, I don't have the words to say, man, that guy was like come from somewhere magical, but he comes with all this human way about him and larger than life. You can't pin it down. You can't even, it's one of those people you can't explain but there's this beautiful quality. And you heard him say all the things he did in these little commentary videos. But he was larger than life, you know, one of those, and that's where the word giant comes in, you know. So he's a great musician and a great man, great human being whose main point, Africa, yes, but love. You know, it turned a negative into a positive. And he was like one of them people, he put that smile on you, it's all over.
So, Rodney, thank you, Monty. Rodney.
There's not too much to say. He said it. He was a king. I thank him for introducing me to so many of the artists that he loved. Like, well, I knew Monty before him, but to see them interact, I thank him for introducing me to people like Amiri Barak and Emilio Cruz and just so many different artists that didn't particularly play music, but they played whatever they played in terms of painting and poetry and turning me on to the books to read and being patient, man. He was certainly a father to me, and he means the world. He changed my whole life, and I thank him. And he's one of the ancestors that I want to say that, you know, Walter Beach, he introduced me to you. And now I have my sons reading your books, so it continues to go. It continues to go and it continues to go, and I just love them.
Yeah. So Randy, I think for me, it feels like it was like a much needed gift to us as a musician. In the same way it was Duke, in the same way it was Monk, in the same way it was, I don't know, Train. It was a gift needed to us to keep evolving and to keep founding, the importance of keeping the roots of the music alive. Because, I mean, we live in a country where roots sometimes doesn't mean much. Everything is like what's the flashy and the newest thing, the most fashionable thing. This is a culture of recycling, right? We recycle everything, our font, and then even sometimes if we don't pay attention, we will be recycling our culture too, which doesn't need to be. We need to really continue like the legacy of Randy of really looking at the foundation of the music, and yeah, we keep evolving, but without forgetting the respect that we have to pay to our ancestors and the foundation of our music, which is basically the foundation of ourselves.
Amen.
Well, I think I just want to thank everyone for creating this opportunity to reflect on such a great master, a great spirit, a great teacher. In many African traditions, it has been said that for an ancestor to stay alive in the ancestral realm, the ones that are living must continuously invoke their names. So there is a way in which sound features in a deep way in African traditions as a way of keeping our ancestors alive. So playing their songs, remembering them, chanting their names. So I'm thankful to be part of that process of making sure that our ancestors live. So I'm thankful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Monty, Rodney, Elio, Nduduzo, thank you so much.
Oh, Fatou, we love you.
Randy.
Fatou, it's wonderful to see you today. And I'd say to Gail and Hebko, bless you both, because this was just not an idea. This was a marvelous moment to celebrate somebody we all loved.
He's laughing up there. He's laughing up there.
Yeah, I can see that. And he's 95, young, and he gives something to all of us here that will take us through the rest of our lives. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I was saying, like as Randy would say, you see.
That's it. That's right. Well, hope to see you all on the street one day, wherever. I don't know, but good to meet you today. It's a wonderful occasion. And Rodney, we're gonna talk a little bit every now and then, a little more than we've been doing, you know?
We must, but I need to call you anyhow because I just got a call for you. So we'll be talking.
Okay, brother.
All right,
all right, thank you very much. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Nduduzo.
Thank you.
Blessings, brother.
You all, man. And keep safe and wear the mask and all that stuff, you know?
That's right.
Keep it going. Thank you.
You guys are all vaccinated or not, or what?
I got the two of them. You know, I have to respect the few people that come along and say, I ain't doing that because they got a microchip in there and all that. I was a kid and they said, I didn't even know the difference. Somebody said, take this injection. I said, I don't want no injection. It's called the polio vaccine. Polio, what that? And then I took it. Guess what? I never got the polio. So I recommend getting it rather than not. That's my
exactly, absolutely, yeah, likewise. And Nduduzo, what about you? Did they do it there too, or how the census are over there right now?
Well, not yet. Only the health workers have gotten it yet.
Okay.
Hope it comes soon. It's good to do. And I think of you today. You're in Africa, in South Africa. Is that correct? That's
yes.
Well, I had the honor of being there on a few occasions, and I miss coming there.
Oh, yes. I fell in love.
Yeah, we headlined the festival together. I think 4 years ago when you were in Durban. Yeah, we played together.
Oh, the Durban time, yeah. And I remember the Joburg time, and I remember Cape Town time, and all was memorable to be there. You know, met some of the good folks there. So, thank you very much. I guess that's it for now, right?
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Peace and love.
Thank you, Mama Futuma. Thank you.
Bless you all.
Enjoy my take some sun.
Thank you, Brother Elio. Thank you. Brother Alexander. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Bye-bye.
We'll see you in London sometime and do so. Bye.
Where's Gail?
I guess that's it. I don't know. Yeah, I guess the mutation.